back order. Yeah, this was on back order for a while, and then it just showed up one day. Countdown songs. 5 minutes to funk was better than 6 minutes. 5 minutes to funk just had that something extra special. No. Oh, I know what I meant to ask you, Lee. What's your Twitter? We got 5 seconds. Okay, Scott, we got 3 seconds. You're talking. And go.
Those of you who know music, the radio station, house music, the Hot Mix 5, this man right here, he's been the program director of KMEL in San Francisco, WBLS in New York City, WGCI in Chicago. I can just keep going, but the one you're going to know him best for is WBMX in Chicago. This is the man that created house music and the Hot Mix 5, the world famous Lee Michaels. I am so honored to have you on the show, Lee. Welcome.
Thank you, Scott, and the other fabulous young man there from Hawaii.
Thank you.
You guys are looking great.
Well, we try.
You can't be a day over 25. Look at you.
Right.
I wish my bones felt that way.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Thank you, man. It's an honor to be here with you guys.
I'm just so excited to have Lee. Lee is the reason that I ever ended up in radio, that I ever had the opportunity to share any of my music skills with anybody. He is the founder of the Hot Mix 5. He is the guy that hired all of us and put the Hot Mix 5 together and put us on the map. But Lee has so many accomplishments. I wanted to bring Lee on because he's been streaming longer than any of us have. I think Lee, as your company did my very first website. I don't know how long ago that was.
30 years ago.
Yeah. Lee is a legend. I mean, he was the first $1 million program director. I'm going back to WBMX. Well, he left BMX, came back to, went to GCI, and then was hired back for $1 million to come back and program it, like $100,000 a month, which is unheard of money in this day and age, let alone back in the 80s when the radio war was really huge here in Chicago. So we have so many things we want to talk about today. And again, I'm just thrilled to have you here, Lee. It's great to see you. I don't know if you saw the promo we put up, but that came from 2007 at the House of Blues. And if you see the picture in the thumbnail, we have Derek Brown, who is the...
Second. We got a weird thing happen. I can hear Lee fine on my side, but...
I can too.
For some reason, Ecamm lost his picture, but I can see him.
Oh, you know what? You're right. You're right. I'm seeing live that I'm seeing a Skype photo and not Lee, and yet I'm seeing him fine on Skype on my computer. So yeah, I'm in the same boat.
That's that Mac thing, man. Y'all got to get off those crack Macs.
No, I think what happened.
No.
Hold on. I think what
PC
happened
is, you got to stop driving that Chevy.
I think what happened is, Scott, because you called him, my Ecamm is looking for that call on NDI, but I can't NDI it because I didn't originate the call.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
So that
Well,
might be
what do you want to do?
Help, huh?
Let's
You want to back out and we'll start over?
yeah. Just I will.
Okay, so everybody, if you're out there,
I'm gonna leave
stand
the stream
by.
running. I'm gonna leave the stream running. I'm gonna hang up the call and then I'm gonna call right back. So just keep your Skype open and hold on. Before we do that,
all right.
And anybody who's watching, this is something you should know. Before we do that, let me make sure that I add Lee to my. I can't do that either. Hold on, let me see.
That's right, because you're using the Skype.
Yeah. All right.
We've had some issues with Skype the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if it's because I run a show. I run a show here at noon.
I understand that. It's not Skype's fault in this case, so you're creating confusion for other people when they run into this problem.
All right, I'm not going to confuse anybody.
Don't do it.
I've been known to do that. I've been known to cause
a
confusion
royal
before.
Piece of crap, but that's not the case in this particular. This particular case is not the case.
No, we love our friends at Microsoft. Yes, we do.
There we go. Okay. Now let me restart this Skype thing and then we'll be good to go.
All right.
Do I have to do a new intro?
I
don't know if I could get that excited again, in real life. Like take two.
We'll give you a bonus.
Roger and Robert will hold on while we do this. I'm gonna call you guys right back.
All right.
What's up, folks? Oh, I see Roger throwing me under the bus. I see. So I'm going to start this meeting. Then I'm going to add Lee Michaels because that's how you do it. Bam. And then I'm going to add Scott. Bam, adding Scott. Boom, Dunskies. All right. Hopefully they answered phone. Okay, there goes Scott.
Yep, I answered.
Okay, cool. And then there goes Lee.
All right, I'm in the house. Like
everybody's back in place. That's how you do it, folks. You just tell them what's going on. And then,
so here's the deal. I get to introduce him twice, right?
My buddy Roger.
Do I get to introduce him twice?
Yeah.
Because he deserves two introductions.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything the first time? Clap.
Yeah, look. Roger said, I should have foreseen this. Like I'm clairvoyant or something. Thanks, Roger.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
I'm sure in his crystal ball, he knew.
Hey, Robert, Roger also can speak Korean like me too, so you can harass him too and then get your wife a check.
So now does Ecamm use Zoom?
It can use Zoom. So
it's
an NDI camera that we need,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Zoom. But yeah, I mean, it does work. There's a lot of DJs out there doing massive parties through Zoom and then using Ecamm to pull in all the graphics and whatnot.
Right.
You're cutting out. You're cutting out there, Doc.
Huh?
You're on that cheap Hawaiian internet.
Bro, it's called coconut.
He hijacked it from
probably paying $500 a month for that internet there that the rest of us are paying $50 for. Okay.
That's right. That's about
right.
He
hijacked it from his neighbor.
Right. He's got his own hotspot over there off his neighbor's.
Coconut wireless.
Your neighbor's cell phone doesn't go that far.
Getting three DJs on a call like this, it's never going to go right.
Right. We don't even need to talk about it. We could just do like a jock meeting in here and it would be off the chain. Because I know the first time I sat in a jock meeting, there's nothing better than sitting in a DJ meeting, folks. If you've ever been to a radio station and sat in one of those, it's hilarious. Because all you had is like 20 comedians in the room.
I found the culprit. For some reason, my clock changed on my backup. It thought it was the perfect time to back up. I'm stopping it. Anyway, you can do your introduction.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am Scott Smokin Silz. I'm coming to you from Chicago with my man Doc Rock in Hawaii. And our guest today, who's now on another call with, we don't even know who he's on a call with, but one and only world famous Lee Michaels. He decided he doesn't even want to talk to us anymore. He's taking other calls, ladies and gentlemen. It's his agent. He's got a better offer.
That's right.
Lee is one of the most famous PDs in radio history, in my opinion. He has been in charge of stations like WBLS in New York. He's been in charge of KMEL in San Francisco, WGCI in Chicago, but probably most famous for WBMX. And he is probably the reason why you're hearing mix shows today. He's the reason why you have house music today, at least that was on the radio. He is the reason why the Hot Mix 5 ever existed. He's the person that put the whole thing together. So it's really my honor to bring him on the show today. He's a wonderful scout of talent, I guess you could say. I mean, he's brought people like Doug Banks, Tom Joyner. I mean, go down the list, Lee. What other stations did I not even mention that you've run?
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
He's been around forever.
Magic 102 in Houston, K-Day in Los Angeles, KDIA in San Francisco, WNOR in Norfolk, WDAS in Philly, about 16 other stations that I consulted, over the years.
I saw DC on your wrist somewhere. Which station was that?
Yeah, DC, Magic and Magic 102 there, and WOL, Baltimore.
WOL.
I've done a lot.
Just an incredible radio guy and a wonderful guy to begin with. Okay. I mean, you were always just wonderful to us. When we started, we were all young guys. I think Ralphie was probably 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah. He was
I was probably like 21 or 22, not much older.
Had a lot more hair. We all did.
Yeah, I did have a lot more hair. As a matter of fact, there were no gray hairs. That's right. We were a gray-free zone back then. Not anymore. Right. But, we've stayed in touch. I mean, Lee has been around forever, as I mentioned. And I did finally get to see Lee. The last time I think was 2007 when we did our 30-year reunion. We played at the House of Blues. Mm-hmm. Lee was there. And if you got to see the thumbnail that we put up, Herb Kent is in that picture. 50-year radio veteran of Chicago radio, a Hall of Famer, passed away a few years ago, but just one of the great guys of radio.
Great legend.
Unbelievable, and still so highly regarded to this day. And then the other person in there is the current VP of programming in Chicago for Clear Channel or iHeartRadio, whatever they want to go by this week, iHeartRadio, and that would be Derek Brown. So, quite a picture that I'm very proud to be a part of. So, and of course, Doc, if you had been in Chicago, you'd have been in that photo with us too, just so you know.
That's probably a guarantee. At that time, I assume when you took that photo at that time, I was in radio, but I was the young buck. My job was to collect carts and bring them into the station so that people can play their commercials in the right order. And at that time, clean the carts or erase and put the new songs on the carts and put the sectone in the right spot. So when you heard dead air, I mean, I screwed up. I put the sectone in the wrong spot.
That's right.
That's right.
So it's funny now when I go to the station now
tone.
and I see the guys with their little computer and they're just clicking, I'm just like, bruh. You go to the thing with the cart up to your chin and like this, and it's all in the right order.
Yeah.
And then you drop it.
Absolutely.
And then you look at the PD like you want to cuss them out because you got to re-put them joints back in order. Yeah.
We used to have a cart room. I mean, it was a room at GCI. Yeah. We had so many commercials. We ran 55 minutes of commercials an hour, played 2 songs, cut them short, and we'd run another 55 minutes of commercials.
You know what's funny is I was telling somebody the other day about cutting commercials on the 1-inch, what's it called? The Orion, right? You go in the back and you literally cut the tape at an angle and you put it in a thing and you get the Kapton tape and you put it on top. And I was like, that's when you see your cut, copy, and paste in the graphics programs. We literally used to do physical with scissors and use Ruby Lift.
All right.
But then in the audio, when you see slice.
Don't laugh, Doc. Don't laugh. I am going to tell you my story. I came from, I went to WGCI in 1996. I was still cutting tape there. That's how we did the commercials. I had to take a razor blade and a splicing block, and I would sit there with a pad and paper and count the number of mistakes that were made during the voicing of the commercial. And then I would have to go back and edit until it got to be too many. And I was like, no, we're starting a new take on this thing. But yeah, #1 radio station in Chicago, 1996. And we were literally still cutting tape and putting everything on a cart.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I ended up getting the job at V103 is they were going to switch off the carts and go to the digital world. And that was kind of my expertise. And Max Myrick was kind enough to give me the job. And Elroy Smith was the one that had referred me to Max Myrick for that job. So he actually shot himself in the foot. Long story short, Max ended up leaving. Elroy ended up coming back in. And, you know, the history went on from there. But
mad circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to talk today about a couple things. I mean, let's go back and talk a little history. We go back to 1981 is when I met you. I called the radio station. You had started doing mixes that week, and I wanted to try to get on the air. How did you come up with the concept of having mixes and hiring all these guys? Tell me about the process that went through your head putting this together.
Yeah, that's a good question, Scott. And it evolved from a mad competitive situation between WGCI and WBMX. And I decided that I didn't want to go toe-to-toe with them, because we were basically playing the same songs. We both had great air personalities, and both stations were spending anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million a year in promotional budget. So I said, listen, we've got to come up with something that nobody else is doing. And during those times, you know, I was hanging out in the clubs and all of that. And I really liked the whole concept of mixing. I was a big fan of that. And I said, you know, nobody's doing mixes on the radio. And back in, you know, before I got to Chicago, what was it, DAI?
Yeah, Disco DAI.
Yeah, they had, mixes on that station, and that went away. So I said, you know, maybe if we put some mixes on and that would be an edge or something different between us and them or WGCI. Yeah. So I began to look around, and my whole concept was to cherry pick DJs that represented different pockets of the metro area around Chicago. So Indiana, the little bit of Indiana and South Side and North Side, inside the city itself. And, you know, that was my basic concept, is to try to find DJs that represented Chicagoland. And so I began to play it, you know, find a couple of guys, say, yeah, this guy's pretty good. And, you know, back in those days, speaking of tape, those shows were all on those big reel-to-reel tapes.
Yeah.
And so not many DJs even had access to those. And I've got a Frankie Knuckles story that I can tell about Frankie, who turned out being one of the world-renowned house music DJs. But he didn't make the cut. Scott, I don't know if you remember, Frankie, he would bring his tapes in late. The quality of the tape was not good. He was, you know, it sounded like a herd of elephants coming through sometimes, and it was offbeat. So, but all of you were young and tender and just kind of building your skills. Some were a lot better than others. And originally, it was going to be the Hot Mix 6.
Somebody got fired.
And somebody didn't show up.
Yep. Don't want to mention Jeff Davis by name.
Hot Mix 6 sounds so much better, though. Jeff,
I
what'd
know.
you do?
You know, be 6.
So, so that was how the Hot Mix 5 came about. We had more or less a little competition, and I handpicked the guys that I thought were the best of all of the 50 or 60 guys that sent in tapes, and we kind of auditioned them for a few weeks, and then, you know, I had a meeting, and I said, okay, you guys are it. And the rest is history.
Did you ever think it would blow up like that, Lee?
No, I didn't. I knew that it would be somewhat sensational and different, but the reality is the Hot Mix 5 became bigger than the DJs that were on Monday through Sunday. and we had some great jocks,
We had
Marco
some super
Spoon, Steve
Marco.
Gunn.
That
Doug
was the
Banks.
voice, everybody. That's when you heard the drops for WBMX BMX. That was Marco Spoon.
It was Marco Spoon.
Just legendary. And we had
And,
Doug Banks, Veronique, Carla Box. Carla Box was going to be the morning drive team with you.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
going to be Banks and Box. I remember all that stuff. We had Steve Gunn, the Jamaican. Steve Gunn from Jamaica, New York.
That's right. That's
that
right.
was the Jamaican Steve.
I've lost
Roy
contact
Michael
with him.
Roberson. I mean, we had
I saw
some
Roy
legendary.
in St. Louis a couple of years ago. He's down
How's he
in St.
doing?
Louis. Yeah, he's
That's
doing
good.
good. Yeah.
Good.
So that's kind of how it all happened. And nobody knew it was going to be as big as it was, but within 2 or 3 months. And I remember the first gig we had was at the Da Vinci.
Da Vinci Manor. Yeah.
And that was sensational. And I knew then that kind of showed me that what we had created was the bomb. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, it started going to much bigger venues. And then I was able to negotiate a deal with the owner of the station. I said, hey, look, these guys, they need to get paid, because in the beginning, you guys didn't make any money.
Exactly.
I said, okay. Well, he says, well, I don't want to increase my payroll. I said, okay, here's what we can do then. Let's do at least 4 major events a year, 1 per quarter, and let's split the profit with the Hot Mix 5. So he basically fronted the money to rent the buildings and, whatever we needed to do. And then after he recouped his expenses, we passed the money on to the Hot Mix 5. And that's
it was Mr. Sonderling. He was the owner of the station, Egmont Sonderling. That story of Da Vinci Manor is really incredible. For those of you who don't know Chicago and don't know Da Vinci Manor, it was located, it's now a Walgreens, but what was it, North Avenue, and wasn't Central, was it? It was
area. I can't
it was
remember.
past Cicero. Now I can't even think what street that was. But it was basically a large wedding banquet hall. They did a lot of weddings there, but it was much bigger, so it was more like an auditorium. You could put a pretty good size event in there with no tables, which is what we did. And I remember the night that we did that, we all carried the equipment in ourselves. We set the equipment up. We had no idea if we would have anybody at this event. And lo and behold, I think we opened the doors at whatever it was, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. And within 10 minutes, the police department was like, you're closing the doors. You're not letting anybody else in here the rest of the night. The line was around the block. The place was jam-packed, and the police department were scared to death. That's it. What you got in here is what you got tonight. Have a nice evening, people.
That's it.
That's when you know you made it.
Done. And we played all night. There were no issues.
Nope.
We broke that equipment down ourselves. We carried it out the door. Lee was like, I don't think you'll ever have to do that again. You guys can now afford to hire people. And we ended up getting paid like $1,000 a piece from that party, if I'm not mistaken. So, guys that are, one is 16 years old. The others are like, 19 or 20, 21, 22, whatever the case may be. And this is like 1981 or 82 we did it. I mean, we started in 81, so it might have been like late 81. Yeah. It was a July 4th or whatever. And, lo and behold, that is how we started, which was incredible.
It was a launching pad.
Wow.
We did an event too one day, a freebie out at Rainbow Beach. And the police department shut the whole area down because we packed that beach up so badly and tied traffic up for miles and miles and miles that they wouldn't let anybody else come over there either. But how we ever got on to a beach in Chicago to play music was another one of the beauties of radio and Lee's work to be able to pull that one off.
Well, the station had a very good relationship with the mayor and city hall and what have you. So pretty much anything we wanted to do, we were allowed to do it. Yeah. And, back in those days, we didn't have the kind of crime and fighting and, stuff that exists today in Chicago.
No, I don't think you'd be able to pull something like that off today, whether you were doing house music or not. We've had some incredible shows here in Chicago, obviously, with the house music community, and it's really a peace, love, and harmony group of people. But, it's just it's trying time with any kind of event. You've really got to be careful and safe. And, we want to make sure everybody's safe at every event. Yeah. with that being said, I'm curious too, like, when we started doing the mix shows in 1981, we were playing Prince records. We were playing, Controversy and Gap Band and, gosh, I can't even remember who else we were playing at the time, but it was basically R&B. Yeah. And so as things progressed and evolved, most program directors would be very nervous about their playlists not being played and not being what maybe their core audience was hoping to hear. And yet you gave us the freedom. I don't think I ever recall Lee going, I want to talk to you about that record that you're playing.
No, that would kill the whole spirit and the impact that you guys had, because you had your finger on the pulse of what was happening in the clubs or the parties and stuff that you were doing out in the streets. So why would I want to hinder that? I want to bring that in, because if it's happening there in the club, we can make it an event on the radio. And that was the whole idea behind that. And I knew my competition was more conservative thinking. And I think we went for a couple of years before they tried to put a show on against us. So at that point, we owned Chicago.
I think it was more that. I don't think it was more like 3 or 4 years before they tried to.
Yeah. It may have been.
At that point, you become Kleenex.
At that point,
right?
we had everybody locked down.
Yeah, it becomes the default nature. So by the time we got hold of these tapes in Hawaii, I'm gonna say it's probably like 85, 86. Because you would have people that flew back and forth, or military guys that would come in and bring the tape, and then the tape would end up at the swap meet, and then all of a sudden you'd be getting these tapes. And I remember, my buddy James Cole and he turned me onto it actually, and then we're listening to this stuff. And so when we started like our mix show here, it was basically we were emulating you guys, you know what I mean? And so James and our buddy Daniel J, who's no longer with us now, they had like the first sort of mix show popping, on the thing. And then I kind of remember James told me a formula, and I'm going to assume he got it from you. So I'm going to ask now. James's secret was, if you're going to break something new, right, and you were unsure, like, but this is banging, but I wonder if the crowd's going to feel it. What James would do is sandwich it between two hits. So he would take the new record, stick it between the new hits, and then what happens is, sort of NLP level, you fall in love with it because you anchored it to the whistle song on this side, you know what I mean, and Fast Eddie on this side. You put the new joint in the middle, and then your brain just goes, oh, I like that middle one. That's Bam too. And so, did you come up with that
sandwich?
I wonder where he got that.
Well,
from.
I mean that's a programmer's protection mechanism. You sandwich two, put an unfamiliar song in between two hits, and chances are you're going to be able to keep that audience going through that song, unless it's really radically, different than what people are accustomed to hearing. So I mean, that we all use that concept, and typically you would showcase that song, introduce it, make a big deal of it. Hey, this is a bad new jam from so and so, and you pump it up. The hype man.
Yes.
So that's what a DJ, a radio personality would do on the radio. You got to hype it up.
Yeah.
And one of the things I used to tell all my air personalities, that you are a salesperson. And they would look at me, no, I don't do sales. No. You are a salesperson, because if you don't convince your audience what you're doing is the best, that you play more music than anybody else, and you're a great personality, and this is a fantastic advertiser, you are selling. You got to convince people what you're doing is the absolute. And they would go, oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. So you got to sell it. And in promos that we would run about, the different events and what have you, contests, that's all selling.
True that.
So you market, promote, make it big. Make it big. Make everything a major event. And that's the only way you're going to win.
You see,
many of those
this
things
brings up a good point, Scott, real quick. A lot of guys right now, they're working on their streams, right? And they're getting their streams out, and they think, man, I play this incredible music, but like I might get 20 people show up. And then I'm like, I didn't know you were about to play. And they go, what do you mean? I didn't see a single tweet, a single Instagram, a single post. I didn't see nothing that said your show was coming up. But when you was in the radio, you know about commercials, fam, because you used to be in the box helping cut commercials. But you're not here now. You just pop your stream on and you want people to be there. Don't nobody know, son.
Magic.
You gotta you gotta get that. And they go, but I'm not that IG type. Then don't stream because you got to be that IG.
Don't expect 2,000 people.
I tell my business
You're
clients
get 12
that too,
that
right?
stumble across you.
My business client says, I'm not a social media person. Then you're not in business, son. Not today.
That's right.
It's a whole different,
If you don't believe in yourself and you're not going to promote yourself, you're not going to be going anywhere. I mean, don't wait to be discovered. It's not going to happen. Not in this day and age.
That's a slow grow at best.
Absolutely.
If you don't know how to market and promote your event, your show, whatever it is you're doing in advance, don't expect people to just kind of stumble across you. I mean, it's a very slow grow.
Well, one of the other things that, I learned from you back in the day, and I want you to kind of share some of this, Lee, if you don't mind. For all you people that have worked in radio, you know about Selector, and that is the music scheduling system. Lee, you had quite a bit to do with that, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct in...
Yeah, I was one of the early adopters, maybe the first urban or R&B station to use it. I became very acquainted or friends with the two owners, the guys that actually created it. And so back in those days, man, the instructional manual was the size of a New York phone book. It was like this thick, man. It was like huge. And I was lucky enough to, because I made a lot of suggestions and contributed ideas to help make the software better, and they would incorporate the things that I needed for my station. So they had me in the index or the content area that I was a major contributor to the success of Selector. So when I first started using it, it was very basic. They had the separation of how many hours you want to keep your rotation and stuff like that. But then I asked for things like tempo, male, female separation, mood, and a lot of different little pieces that they added to the software that made me have more control over the flow of the music selection. So I was.
Well, I remember
contributor.
I was in college when I started at WBMX, and so I got an internship there so I could get credit for college. And the project that Lee put me on was I had to go through all the music in the entire radio station, all those carts, without a fast forward on that machine. And I had to tempo every single song. We went with +1 through +4 and -1 to -4. So Lee took really what the DJs were doing in the clubs and began to schedule some tempo and things together to have a better flow with his radio station. I don't think a lot of people knew about that or, what was going on at the time, but you were putting to use a lot of the skills that we had learned,
Absolutely. And it was just common sense to me that you guys had control over the mood and the flow, and you could speed it up or slow it down, but you had to do it in increments. And I went, wow, that makes sense. So let's do that on the radio. Yeah. So one of the things that, I hated about, quote, top 40 radio, they would go from a slow song to a fast or fast to a slow. That just destroyed your mood. Yeah. You're driving down the highway, you got, Earth, Wind, and Fire jamming song. And then all of a sudden they go to a slow jam. You go,
no, do that again, please.
A slow jam.
There you go.
You just reminded me of the Quiet Storm back in DC. Let's listen to the Quiet Storm, and you would look forward to that. Like I know that as at the time Quiet Storm came out, I was entering high school, and Quiet Storm hour was when you got on the phone or you did the little flashlight thing to tell your little girlfriend to listen to the Quiet Storm. I'm going to call up Donnie Simmons because he was actually my neighbor. I'd be like, Donnie, I'm checking out this girl, Teresa. I need you to shout me out on a thing. And he would look at me like, Young Buck, what you know? And I was like, come on, man, do it. And then, he would say something, and they were in school. Everybody be like, "Oh, he like you," you know.
Yeah.
But when you had like the Saturday groove, and I'm out, cutting grass or trying to clean mom's car or something, and I'm flowing, and all of a sudden, I would be like, "Man, there goes my, there goes my
destroyed
beat.
it, yeah,
destroyed
absolutely.
it." So the idea of setting the shows up is much better.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you a funny story. My wife and I were on vacation in Mexico. What was it? Puerto Vallarta. And sitting on the beach and, just having a good time, checking out the water, looking out over the ocean and everything. And all of a sudden I hear this music behind me, and it was some house music. I went, what the hell? What? And I heard Saturday Night Live, Ain't No Jive, Chicago Dance Party on 102.7 WBMX. I'm going, oh man, I got to stop drinking because I'm tripping. I'm sitting in Mexico and I'm hearing my own voice come back. And I'm going, I look back there and there was this couple, maybe 25, 30 feet away from me. And I had to get up. I said, hey, you guys must be from Chicago, right? They go, no, we're from Cleveland. I said, how'd you get that tape there? That's my radio station in Chicago. Well, the lady almost lost it. I thought she was going to have a heart attack. This is your station? Oh, my God. And it was a white couple from Cleveland playing my radio station on a ghetto blaster on the beach in Mexico. So I'm going, what the hell? And I said, how did you get the tapes? It was a cassette.
Yep.
She says, our son goes to Loyola University. He tapes these things and he sends them to us every week, and we clean the house, we wash the car, we do everything. We go to work, we listen to these tapes. They're wonderful. I'm going, man, this is trippy. Now this is early on. This is like 81, 82.
Yep.
When that happened. And I went, oh my God. Now can you imagine what that would have been if the internet was in play at that point?
Oh, different game.
Another story.
Different game.
I go to KMEL in San Francisco. That was in 85-ish. Yeah. And I'm programming a top 40 station, and I'm kind of bringing it out of the, quote, top 40 feel into a more contemporary sound with a better music flow and better mix, playing some Luther versus, The Boss. And it began to grow. So one day I go out on Pier 35, right across the way from the radio station in downtown, not downtown, but San Francisco. And I go out there to buy a hot dog and a Coke, right? There's this little guy, got a little vendor out there in the clown suit with the multicolored afro wig. You remember that? And so
I got one on my corner every day still selling balloons.
Making money, right?
I kid you not. Yes.
So he's selling hot dogs and potato chips and, Coke. And so I go over and I say, hey, man, get a dog and everything. Again, Saturday Night Live, ain't no job. He's got his ghetto plastered there. Well, dude, where do you get that from? He goes, my cousin lives in Chicago. He sends me these tapes. I said, yeah. I said, do you ever listen to KMEL? Yeah, every now and then. I said, would you think that would work on the radio here? He goes, yeah, hell yeah, it would work. So I said, okay, well, tune into KMEL this weekend. I'm going to put those on there. Yeah, okay, what you want on your hot dog? He like poo-pooed me off. Like I guess he didn't believe I had anything to do with the radio station. So I go back to the station. I call Armando up. I said, Armando, I'm going to prepay you a ticket. Bring me 5 pancakes of Hot Mix 5 stuff. And you're going to go on air this weekend. He goes, what? So I flew Armando out to host the show because I knew he knew how to do it, right? To serve it up.
Yes.
So in one book, we went from number 12 to number 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
In 3 months.
It's all because of Armando.
That's
He
it.
knew what to do, man. I mean, Armando was the best.
He knew how to hook it up. So I go back over to the hot dog stand on that Monday. And I said, well, man, did you listen to KMEL over the weekend? He goes, you did that? I said, yeah, I'm the program director, operations manager. I told you I was going to do it. He goes, you don't have any idea what you did. I said, what do you mean? He goes, Man, you just shut down all the clubs in town because ain't nobody going out no more. I said, for real? Everybody I know, they were calling me left and right. So, man, you listen to KML? He said, everybody in town is talking about it. That was just in one weekend. So the power of something, those mix shows were powerful because nobody was doing it at that time.
And you see, Lee, you bring something up that I have been preaching on this show since Scott and I started this thing. Everyone's pissed off because they can't be at the club right now. And I'm telling you, it doesn't freaking matter. A bigger audience was the cats who can't come to the club because they can't get a
That's
babysitter.
right.
They have an elder in Hawaii. Our elderly parents are all with us, right? You know, in the other side of the house.
Yeah.
We Ohana
That's it.
style. We live like that. You know, our whole
Yeah.
entire island lives like Puerto Ricans. So, you know, 5 generations in the crib.
Sure.
That's just the island. So
Exactly.
like the concept of being bummed because you can't be at the club right now is you don't have to, bro, because you could do
No.
it by yourself from your little room. It just requires some
That's it.
work. If nobody's coming to your Twitch, buy some ads on Facebook to send them to your Twitch. You can
That's
buy
it.
100,000 ad impressions on Facebook for $1.50. It's not that expensive, yo. If you actually pay $50, you can reach
Oh, man.
20, 30 million people for $50. Not even in your neighborhood that listen to exactly
All over
what
the
you
world.
play. Like,
That's
I
it.
need to find all of the people in this age bracket that know what these songs are across the United States, plus the UK, plus Mexico. We will add them because of Lee. And then within hours, your ads running, and then all of a sudden people show up to
That's
your
it.
Twitch. So, yeah, like
That's
if
it.
you really want to do this, you can do this right now and have that exact same effect. Because can't nobody go to the club, so you should be absorbing Saturday night like no tomorrow.
Perfect time. That's it. Perfect time to launch a mix show or whatever you want to do. But don't forget about what you just said, marketing. You got to advertise, market, promote what you're doing. Back in the day, you got a bunch of flyers and you go out and stick them on windshields. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You can hit 1 million windshields through the internet in 30 seconds.
Well, I think the miss comes in. Okay, so in a general situation right now, restaurants, small restaurants, they need to let people know that they open. So they don't have their normal marketing budget or whatever. Even the big restaurants, hell, you go to one of these guys and be like, look, I do this show on Saturday nights and I'm going to buy Facebook ads that sends people to this show. I want $50 and I'm going to call you to sponsor this show. And they'd be like, that's it? Yeah, $50.
That's
How
it.
many people watch your show? I could get to about 200. They'd be like, all right, $50 to 200 direct people that you actually know is stronger than $500 for the one-liner at the radio station to just blast to 1 million people that you don't know, because you are the arbiter of what's good. Every DJ in their town is the arbiter of what's good. If you say these Nikes rock, everybody got them Nikes. Whether you know it or not, it's just the case.
That's right.
Right? I know for a fact that my friends
it's called an endorsement.
Yeah. My friends and I created the freaking Crown Royal nonsense that happened in Hawaii where everybody was drinking that mess. I'm a professional whiskey drinker now. I don't drink that no more. But back in the day, we got every new drinker on Crown Royal. And then we switched to Patron. Everybody was on Patron. And then we switched to Kettle One.
Yeah.
Everybody was on Kettle One or Grey Goose or whatever. And Heineken's, we sell more Heineken's in Hawaii than probably any state. Again, club promoters created that mess. So for that same power you have to have everyone drinking the same thing, you can say to a restaurant, hey, this is happening. You know this to be true. So because they go out. So ask them for $25 and use that to buy your Facebook ad. And you'd be amazed at what $25 ad budget would do.
So Lee, I wanted to ask you too. You were, BMX was an urban radio station back in the day when we started. Did you ever think you would actually be the one creating what is now known as CHR radio? Because we played so many rock songs and so many records that were out of the genre that would not normally have any chance of airing on that radio station. And yet those became some of our biggest hits.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't afraid to venture off into the never land, as some programmers will say. No, man, you got to stay in your vein and your lane, and only play R&B. Well, I had a top 40 background. As a DJ back in my early career, I worked at a top 40 station. So I had an appreciation for some of the pop artists. And I knew all my friends felt the same way. I said, so look, you can mix some of that in and be cool with it. And so I wasn't afraid to venture off into that because I had that experience in my life prior to doing WBMX. And so I was not afraid to take a chance or to venture out. And my goal was to grow the base of the radio station. At the time, WGCI was about 85-90% black in terms of their audience composition. So we were at that time about 65%. So I already had a significant non-black audience. So I had two choices at that point. Grow the black base without destroying the non-black base, which was Hispanic and white. And that's what we did by incorporating. In fact, we grew some of the non, and then we got all the hip black folks and grew that. So when we beat GCI, we were at about 75% black and 25% other, but the number itself was everything grew.
Huge.
Exactly.
What was the number? Like our average quarterly hour back in the day? I mean,
well, if I remember correctly, we had the largest time spent listening of any urban station in America. At the time, it was about 12 and a half hours a week per person.
Wow.
Which is a big number. I mean, you don't see that today.
No.
An urban station typically will still have a significant audience, but it's 6 to 8 hours now.
So let's put this in perspective for somebody out there, even for the DJs. Let's say you're a club DJ, you're watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
If you played for 15 minutes on WBMX, how many people would be listening to that show in 15 minutes? How many people do you think you were playing for at that point? Because I don't think people are going to realize how big your impact is.
Well, I'm not going to be able to quote the exact number, but I want to say it was in the 150,000 or something like that per quarter hour.
150,000 people you are playing again, for. Like so every song you play, 150,000 people are listening to what you have chosen to mix.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just mind-boggling, and I wanted it to come from your mouth. I'm still blown away by the numbers.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting those kind of numbers now because the audience is so fragmented.
Right.
Now they switch from per quarter hour. Now everybody's pumping cum. We'll got 3 million people a month, tuning in. Yeah, but they only staying 5 minutes because they can't take this repetition.
Yeah.
And my powers, the most popular songs was in the 3.5 to 4.5 hour rotation. So if you listen for 8 hours, you're not going to hear that song, but maybe twice. And sometimes, not even then, depending on where you fell in that rotation. So I was programming for a long time spent listening versus playing the same 30 songs and beating the shit out of them until you hate them. I didn't want to burn them out that fast.
You know what is going to happen right now, because what's happening, a lot of the PDs are programming for that young audience, that hip audience, because you figure you're going to get a lot. But those guys aren't radio listeners. Your radio listeners are, at this point, and I'm going to just spitball, I'm going to say is like 35 to 60. So the station, there's one station here that's kind of figured it out. What they do is they'll play new song, old, new song, old. And by old, I mean anything from like 5 years ago all the way back to like early 90s. Other than that, they'll have a special like old school hour. But by doing that, your people who actually listen will still have it in the ceiling on at work. And even that, in the ceiling at work is kind of died now. People are listening to other forms instead of having, that that time spent. And so
Sure.
it's crazy that even the station companies, your iHeartRadio apps and all this other stuff, these guys haven't figured out. Do what we're doing right now with your top market stations, where I can actually put that station live on my TV while I'm doing something. I probably listen to the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I listen to
Yeah,
the whole
people are
thing
listening
because you can
to
see
radio
something.
differently now.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
want to see stuff.
exactly.
So right now there's
Absolutely.
a
It's a visual thing.
fragmentation of DJs, IG living in their studio. So like, James is at Salem Radio, he's playing his music and stuff. He has an IG live there in between songs. He'll talk to people or he'll do his little shout outs that are like not going over the whole air. But it shouldn't be fragmented by the DJ chooses to do it. It should be literally the station's mode of operation because that is
I
where the
agree.
people are interactive content.
Yes.
It's so crazy. They're still waiting for people to dial in for contests. I'm like, you can do content
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
better now.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's a shame that the management and the ownership of radio today, AM, FM stations, still are stuck in that old school mentality, and they have not adapted to the digital world. When I was working for, and I won't embarrass them, and I won't name the name of the company, but major company, I was working for them. I sat down with the president of the company one day and I said, hey, look, why don't we add some live streams to each radio station that we own? Okay. And so you no longer play some of the 70s and 60s music, but your station is an urban AC. So why don't we take that segment of music that we don't play anymore on the FM station, put that online, and so people who want to hear that still have a place to go, because right now there's nowhere, to hear it in this particular market. He said, why would we want to do that? We would take audience away from our FM signal and have them go to our website to listen to that. That'll cannibalize our FM. I said, listen, no, it won't, because they're still in your world. You still own them. That's part of your domain. That's your heritage. I said, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and they'll be gone forever. They're no longer in your circle. And he said, no, man, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Well, he didn't do it. Then 5 years later, he tried to do it. It was too late.
Yep.
Because the people who wanted to hear that, now you have Spotify and all these other, online services that you can tailor what you want and filter out everything else. So timing is everything.
Yep.
It's like when the Hot Mix 5 came along, timing. I hit it at the right time.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. And I love arguing with people from New York about where house music actually originated. I have a limo service, and I also did Uber and Lyft for a brief period of time. And I would get people to come in from all over the world out, pick them up, take them to and from the airport and what have you. And when I get a crowd and they say, hey, man, can we play some music through your radio? I say, sure. So I hook them up with a cable or Bluetooth. And invariably, at least 2 or 3 times a month, I get somebody that want to play some EDM or house music, right? So I'd crank it up real loud, and they go, wow, you like this music? I said, hell yeah. I said, you have no idea. I mean, I really like it. And then I would ask the ultimate question. No matter where they're from, they could be from London or Germany or New York or Philadelphia, whatever. I said, where did house music originate? And they will all get like this stone face in most cases. They say, I don't know. Or one would say London, and another guy said New York. And then I would have to teach them. I'd take them to school at that point. And I'd tell them, I said, well, my name is Lee Michaels, and I was in broadcasting, been in business for almost 50 years at that point. And I give them my history. Invariably, when they get out of the radio, they want to take pictures, get my autograph. And one guy, in fact, was a DJ from London. I picked him up one night after his performance at a club in downtown L.A. Man, I ended up spending an hour with this cat taking pictures, and he called his friends back in London and said, "Man, do you know who I got here? I mean, it was my driver tonight." And then so I got to talk to that guy. It's like, damn.
Hey guys,
So it's nuts.
I want to bring somebody on. Somebody wants to say hello to you real quickly. All right, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Lee, what's happening, man?
Who that? I know who it is. That's Armando.
Very good.
Can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear. What's up, buddy? I don't think he can hear me, huh?
I don't know if he can hear you back or not. I'm not positive on that. But Armando,
he probably can. Yeah.
I reached out to him yesterday. I want to get him on the show. And lo and behold, he's calling while you're on the air. So I don't know if he's watching us on YouTube or Facebook, but I figure I got to throw him on and bring him in here.
Absolutely.
So we were talking about you, Armando, one of the house music legends here, and talking about some of the days back in BMX, and even going out to, was it Frisco for that?
Yeah.
With KMEL or whatever, and hooking it up. So he's got to run, but we'll give you a second. Go ahead, Armando.
Hey, Scott, what's happening, man? Oh, I didn't know you were doing this thing here, man, but it's pretty cool. So you reminiscing about the old days?
We are. We're talking old school radio here with my man Doc Rock in Hawaii and Lee Michaels.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I talk to Lee every week, man.
Yeah.
So, let Lee know. I'll hit him up later on tonight.
Okay. Well, we're going to get you on the show.
Show.
I reached out to Armando yesterday, so we definitely want to have you on, Armando. So I'll reach out to you in the next couple of days. We're going to make that happen. All right. So be safe, buddy.
All right, man. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Robert said,
"Sorry,
Scott
guys.
got tricks."
That's just too much timing right there. I had to bring him on.
Right?
So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You could have him call me, and I could Bluetooth him through my mixer here. I got.
Well, that's what I just did. I brought him. I got the little Roadcaster Pro, and
that's what I have too.
Popped it in and plugged him in, and good
Is
to
that
go.
a great
So
mixer or what?
they're incredible. I had to learn a couple tricks out of these. But Doc Rock, that's you're missing the boat, buddy.
You guys are costing me money.
You don't have a Roadcaster, man?
No, I just bought a brand new iMac that will run circles around a Ferrari, though. So I had to take a pic. And so I'm sitting here looking at my calendar every day because I just got the notification that says it won't land here until like September 15th. But yeah, I just bought one of them fully loaded iMacs. But I really want
$500 or $5,000. I only spent $5 on the Roadcaster. You're spending $5,000 on the iMac.
It was 35, but still, yeah.
I'm running my 2013 with my new 2 terabyte solid state drive in there that has just beefed this thing up, so it's working. But I got lectured a couple weeks ago on the show by Doc about not having the newest technology on this, so I ultimately will pony up, Doc. Trust me.
It's still working, right?
Yeah, that's the curse, bro. That's and for all of us DJs and music people, that's the curse, bro. I know that for sure. We be holding on to stuff forever. My lovely Alan and Heath back there, which I love so much, he's probably older than Frankie, but I love that mixer.
Hey, I still have my Clubman mixer, my GLI 9000 that I did the mixes for WBMX back in 1981, 82, and 83. I still have one of those here.
Wow.
I'm keeping it. It's history. So
you know what I would love to find, and I know it's in the closet somewhere. When I first tried to get turntables, I couldn't afford 1,200. So I had this realistic mixer. At that time, it was $49. And I want you to know, in 1984, $49 might as well have been $1 million to a kid from the hood.
That's right.
It's a week's paycheck, yes.
And I remember I didn't have faders, I had knobs. But I worked the crap out of the knobs until I could get them.
He's a New Yorker. He's got to have knobs. New Yorkers all got knobs.
That's because that's all Radio Shack had back then. We didn't have Guitar Center yet. Or Sam Ash.
Nobody was really making a lot.
Yeah, true that.
We had Music Craft. That's where we used to go back in the day. That was the spot on Oak Street.
Yeah.
You remember that, Lee? Yeah, that's
absolutely.
where we got a lot of the gear. The good stuff came from Music Craft.
I bought my oldest son his first mix set from there.
Yeah.
2 Techniques turntables, and what was a mixer?
How's your son doing, by the way?
George is doing good. He's up in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Victor's right. It's a Newmark, 1985 Newmark. That was my first slidable mixer. It was
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I think that's what.
Yeah, they were.
What was it? Newmark or what?
So
What were most of the Hot Mix 5 used?
we were mostly using GLI. GLI was
GLI.
very popular, and then the Newmark came around, but we didn't feel the quality was there. So I
Right.
think a lot of us were running the GLI, like the 3990, the 9000. That was
Well,
pretty
that's what I bought.
dependable. And then we had Newmark. I think we all bought them, and we weren't really feeling them. And there
Right.
was even like a lower price version of that we'd find at a lot of the shows that we'd go play. And, it was like, oh, man, this is just not up to par.
You know why Newmark got popular is because of us, because it was really good for crabbing. And when we saw Grandmaster Flash bust out the Newmark and he could crab, and then the second person that made me fall in love with Newmark was Joe Cooley. You had Rodney O and Joe Cooley, and then you would see him cutting, and I was just like, oh, that's the one. That's the one I want. And then so went out,
Gotta have it.
hit the streets, hustled up the right cake, and then got that. But then I found out real quick, I can't scratch if I had chicken pox. So I just stopped.
Itching for a scratch.
I just stopped doing that. And the thing that let me know 100% that I was never going to be able to scratch is I went on a trip. I was graphic designer at the time, and I went on a trip to a conference in San Francisco. Used to be called Seabold. All the graphic designers would go. And then in between the nerd show, I'd go down to, Embarcadero, go down to Pier 39 or whatever, and I was watching these dudes, play in the street. And I met these really cool kids, right? And there's one guy, he introduced himself to me as P-Kid. And he's like, yeah, I got to introduce me and my boys. We're going to do this thing tonight. Come through. I came through, and I met this little San Francisco squad. They were called the Invisible Scratch Pickles. And I was like, number one, that name is dope. These kids are pretty hot. And then that little bald-head Filipino dude is sick with the scratching. What's his name? Oh, he's Kubert. You mean like the video game? Yeah. Okay, I quit. Never scratched again.
Yeah.
After seeing that, never scratched again. Plus,
Right.
Have you got a couple more minutes to spend with us, Lee?
Sure.
Have you got a couple more? All right. So everybody out there, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button. We do this every Wednesday. We do it at 2 p.m. Central Time. Today, our guest is the legendary, world-famous Lee Michael, the program director of WBMX and the creator of the Hot Mix 5, the brainchild behind the whole thing, and just a program director for numerous radio stations across the country, the best radio stations across the country, all the big names, all the big markets. And we're really excited to have you here, Lee. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
I'm curious, Lee, as to what do you think about radio today? I mean, where do you think it's headed? Wall Street kind of came in, big business took it over. It certainly changed things. You don't have the $1 million programming director opportunities anymore that you had before, but you could have a great career with some of these companies if you can hang in there long enough.
True.
But what are your thoughts? I mean, will radio be here in another 5 or 10 years? Is satellite radio here to stay?
I've got mixed emotions. I'll say that radio will exist in some form. I think it will continue to evolve. Satellite radio, I'm disappointed with.
I thought it would be bigger.
I think they came out of the gate wrong.
Yeah.
They were very arrogant in their marketing approach of, hey, we're going to put these 100 channels up and people are going to dash and run to it for whatever. What I would have done was I would have said, okay, we're going to have 10 free channels. Because at that time, you had to buy a radio. You had to buy an adapter or a radio or whatever. So you got to give them some kind of incentive to make that investment. And I remember going into some of the electronic stores with whatever, Best Buy or what was the other one? What was
Circuit City. We had
Circuit City.
City,
they had a booth set up.
Yep.
And you could go in and listen to it. It was kind of cool. But I didn't want to spend $300 for a little plug-in radio.
Yeah.
And the quality wasn't that great at that point. So I think they messed up on that. So they should have said, look, buy the radio, you'll get free channels, 10 free channels. They'll have commercials on them, but the listeners are already accustomed to that.
Right.
But get them hooked on those 10 free. Let them drive from New York City to Miami and go, shit, I listen to my favorite songs all the way uninterrupted, didn't fade out, and no static and none of that. Okay. Yeah. I think that was a mistake. And I ended up working for Radio 1 that had 5 or 6 channels on XM before the merger. And I said, these two satellite companies are not going to be able to coexist because they're doing it wrong. They will eventually, either one of them is going to fall off or they'll merge. They ended up merging. Yeah. And I'll say this. Here's another parallel here. Uber and Lyft. They're not going to be able to coexist. They're killing themselves. They're suppressing the market. Well, that's exactly what XM and Sirius was doing. Now it's Sirius XM. Yeah. So either Uber or Lyft is one of them is going to go away. They're maybe both out in California here in the next few days because of the legal issues going on there. And it's going to happen in other states. So they're going to have to change their business model in order to stay in business. So AM, FM radio stations as we know them today, the audience is definitely eroding, and among the younger people primarily. There's a generation of kids today that can't tell you the name of one of the local radio stations that 100%. You would think they would be listening to.
100%.
Because they've grown up on these devices.
My way.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. And they can listen to what they want to listen to at any time that they want to listen to it. And it's stuff coming from all over the world. I'll give you an example. When I worked for Radio 1 in Washington, D.C., my youngest son, Corey, was in high school. And I went into his room one day and I heard this, like house music. And I went, Corey, what do you know about house music? What's up with that? He goes, well, I listen to, a lot of different kind of music because, KYS, which is a station, the company I was working for, Radio 1, owned that station. That was the top 40 or R&B hip hop station for the younger people. I said, why aren't you listening to Kiss? He goes, man, they play the same old stuff over and over again. I get sick of it. I said, well, where's this guy at? New Zealand. He was listening to some guy doing a mix show from New Zealand, coming out of his basement or bedroom or wherever it was. And I go, why there? He goes, guy jams. He's kicking it, I said, wow. So I went back to Alfred Liggins that very next day, and I told him that experience. He didn't get it. I said, dude, you gotta adapt. You gotta adapt to the change. I said, if you don't keep these guys, young people coming to your station in some form, you're gonna lose. So that's part of the problem. The arrogance or the mindset of the owners and management of radio stations. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. They don't think they need to change. And if you're going to evolve, if you're going to be here tomorrow, you better change. Yeah. You better change for what's happening. I saw the curve in 80, 81 with mixes. What's up, dog? And I didn't resist it. I embraced it. I said, welcome, come on in. And that's what's not happening. I mean, most of the stations have some kind of mix show on a Friday or Saturday night, and that's fine. But they don't understand how to use Facebook properly, or YouTube, or Instagram, or any of them. Snapchat, they don't understand how to use it yet. They're still stiff-arming us. No, we don't need that. No. At one point, iHeart had a mandate that each jock had to do a blog every day.
Yes,
they had to do something on their particular way. Are they still mandating that?
Yeah, still.
I'm pretty sure they are.
Well, that's good, but it's bigger than that now.
Yeah. Well, and because the guys that are doing it, you're giving a mandate, but they don't necessarily know how. So some of the guys are doing it in the morning show, for instance, here on iHeart. They do the radio blog, and there's people that know how to tell a story and engage you and pull you in, and there's people that don't know how to tell a story and engage you and pull you in. So if the blog is only about you and your life or whatever, that's going to get old real quick. right? These
Yeah.
guys haven't figured out, from what I did all the way back when I was in radio, my listeners were the stars, not me, not my partner JP.
That's right.
JP
That's
and I
right.
were the dudes with the mics, but we were not the stars. The stars were the listeners. People, if you are on radio right now and you're listening to this in any way, shape, or form, talk to your people. The word "you" should
Include
come
them.
out of your mouth much more than I, and call them out by name. You meet people in the grocery store, ask them what their name is, bring them up, speak on them live. Then they want to listen because they want to see if you still talk to them. You highlight people. You let your listeners become stars, and then
That's right.
Then they're there. They will drag
That's
people
right.
with you, but nobody gets that.
Give them ownership of your show. Include them.
Even from the
get
club, we
them
used
involved.
to do that. Like nobody
Sure.
does it. You know, in the club days, the best thing you could do, and the bar people loved it. Call out one of the ballers and be like, "Oh, we're gonna go do shots like this dude. He just bought 10 for his friends. What are y'all doing?" And then the baller would feel all cool because you called his name. Stupid because the
Yeah.
FBI is also watching, but that's his dumminess. Anyway, you know, but by calling them out, then
Yeah.
they get you know what the ballers would do? Send a bottle to the booth.
That's right. That's
Hey,
right.
hey.
You the man.
What's up, fam? All right, cool. Look.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. You
I'm sorry.
included
I'm
them
sorry.
in
I'm
what you
rap
were doing.
snitching over here, but hey, that's how it's done.
It is.
Well,
It is.
Well, you know, one of the things that I've noticed, like actually, iHeart had tried to do Career Channel, whatever you want to call it. They tried to do the less is more thing, and they wanted to cut the radio commercials down from 60 seconds to 30 seconds, or even to 15 seconds. So they wanted to get more like TV. I thought that was actually a really good idea back then. Unfortunately, the other companies, being the competitors that they are, when people fought against it, the other companies weren't going to cut it down. They were going to try to take that money because they'll run that 60-second spot. But
Sure.
I think radio in general just really missed a great opportunity there to service their listeners and try to get things cut down so that they could play more music and be a little bit more competitive than they are. You know, we got companies like Apple now. They just changed the name of their radio station. It was announced, I want to say it was yesterday. They're changing Beats Radio off to, it's going to be Apple Music. And I think they're offering a country channel now, something of that nature. But, you know, here's the biggest company in the world. And
$2 trillion.
they can't do radio, but you know, they really didn't ever reach out to anybody that actually understood radio. I don't know how many radio executives you know that came out of radio that went to Apple to try to help them and teach them. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, we know how to do everything better. And there's no way to apply for a job in that position or get to anybody. It's like a secret society. But
they got suckered.
There are some people out here that understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's amazing to me that a company like that, you know, just can't get it together. I mean, I subscribed to Apple when it first came out. I was like,
you got Ebro, and you know, and again, no diss him, big love to him, right? You got Ebro, and now the name's going to escape me, the kid from BBC One, and they were the top jocks. So they went in and they told them, hey, I could do everything Lee Michaels could do. I don't need a program director. I'm the jock. Everybody listens to me. And Apple bought that. What they should have done was bought Lee Michaels, not bought the top jock. Because behind every top jock is a PD. For us, it was a dude named Alan Oda. He's no longer in the business. He's in China right now living up his wonderful life. But, you know, when Alan said, you know what? I'm a horrible on-air personality. In his head, we all loved him, but in his head, he goes, I'm not as good as you guys. I'm going to take the back seat, but let me run the ship. You guys follow my lead, and we'll get there. And we were the number one station, and we kicked butt. We kicked metric butt because the dude was full of ideas. And two things happen in radio. You get the PD that's also a jock that won't hire anybody better than him, or you got the jocks that think they're bigger than the station, and then they try to go from station to station to station, thinking that they're going to drag their audience, and that doesn't work because behind every one of us, there was an Alan Oda, or behind the Scotts, there's a Lee Michaels. Like there's an important guy in the background doing that work, and I don't think at that time we appreciated it. Now, as a business person and an older person, like I understand. Like there would have been, without a good PD, you know, there wouldn't have been any of us. We would be non-existent.
Well, and that's true. And the problem with radio today is a lot of the PDs that exist today some, if not most, never did an air shift, number one. Number two, if they did, whoever their PD was didn't teach them enough. So they don't know how to teach the crew that they're in charge of. Yeah. And more importantly, most of the program directors don't have the power to hire or fire.
Their hands
because
are
the
tied.
vice president of programming at the corporate level makes those decisions.
Yeah.
Or
they can't even pick records anymore.
Manager.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, they can't add a record. They can't drop a record. They can't do anything.
I mean, they've got it to the point the record companies don't have any promoters coming in on a weekly basis anymore. And so they've eliminated that. You can go to one corporate guy and he'll make the decision for 500 radio stations if we're going to play this record or not. So there's absolutely zero creativity. There's no bullpen. You know, who's your relief pitcher coming in? How are you going to train the next Tom Joyner, the next Doug Banks, the next Herb Kent? Where are you going to get those people from?
Yeah, they don't know how to do it because you got to remember for the last 20, 30 years, syndication has been the dominant factor. So the PD doesn't even wake up and listen to his morning show because he doesn't have to. What the hell? Because if you've got Tom Joyner or whoever on that show, you have no control over it, except for those little local breaks. And you got a board op there that's inserting the traffic and weather, news, whatever, and the commercials.
And trying to make it sound local because, that's what
Scott.
they do. I mean, it's how do you localize the national show that's, taking place in New York and they've got rioting going on there and we're in sunny Roswell, New Mexico, and you're trying to sell this as the local show and all they're talking about, well, there's protesters everywhere now. And they're like, I was on Main Street. I didn't see anybody protesting this morning.
Bro, you brought up something very valid, Scott. Okay, so there's this thing that I want to go away really bad, and I know you guys would know about it because they probably have it in every market. It's this fake thing called the second date update, or it's this kind of like random fake dating shows or these horrible, like creeper guys stories, and they use actors and these random girls, and they act at the scene like, some dude was trying to hit on them with horrible pickup lines, and it's funny, but it's not funny. And they do this thing where they send these people on a blind date, and they have these horrible stories like, the guy ate, fettuccine Alfredo, and he couldn't control himself. He had to go run to the bathroom and drop a deuce, but he soiled his clothes, so he left her at the restaurant. He went home, and they talk to her like, oh, would you go out with him again? And it's completely made up. It's completely trivial. Yeah. It's completely trite.
It's
and what
predictable.
They do here,
now, you know that doesn't happen in real life because guess what? Guys are all taught if they're going on a date, it's not about the dinner.
Yeah.
So, eat before you go if you have to.
So what these guys do,
this coming from a married man for 35 years.
To try to make it sound local is they will have the actors switch the names to local sounding names. And this would work. Right. But if you mispronounce your own name because you don't know the Hawaii names, you are sounding absolutely horrible. And then
that's right.
Once you hear Pidgin English, if you've been to Hawaii, Pidgin English requires a certain accent, and it's very hard to duplicate because it's a lazy drag of certain vowels and consonantal and glottal sounds. So you
give me an example.
You can't just fake it. So like for instance, like we don't say how's it is how's it. It's different, right? But when you say how's it, when you fully say the how, right? Nobody really says how's it anymore, but I can't think of one. But there's lots of local words and stuff that we say like, oh, no way. It's not bruh, it's ba. But it sounds like bruh, but it's actually ba.
Right.
I got to contribute to this, okay? Because I would get that call in the morning from the program director and be like, there's a commercial running, you need to get this changed right away. Well, you hire new people into the station. They come in from different markets. So, we have Medina, Illinois, where they have the Medina Country Club.
Right.
And it comes out as Medina or Medea, or we have a local newscaster that's now the national broadcaster on Channel 5 here in Chicago. That would be Lester Holt. And I remember him talking about Bannockburn instead of Bannockburn.
Wow.
Like
Yeah,
Lester
so,
Holtz
the
from
story
CNN.
experienced
Lester Holtz.
Lester Holt from NBC.
NBC.
But
Don Lemon came out of Chicago.
Yep.
But I don't
That's
listen. I don't watch that show enough to catch his mistakes. So
Yeah,
we won't even go there. But,
in all my radio travels, going different regions around the country, that was a real eye opener for me. I remember when I first went to Los Angeles, and I was on the radio there, and you got a lot of Spanish, names for streets and cities. I butchered that shit, man. I killed it. La Cienega. I can't tell you how many different ways I pronounced that word.
You need a local tutor
to get La
basically to
Cienega.
walk you through all these different neighborhoods, how they're
Sure.
referred to, so that you can sound local when you get there. Because otherwise, you come off sounding like, who is this idiot?
That's right. I was on the air at KDIA in Oakland. And I was on, trying to be hip and everything. I said, yeah, man, it's so good to be in the Bay Area, and I'll be hanging out in the city, tonight, and coming out and do. Because outside, people told me San Francisco was called the city. So this lady called me up on the phone. She says, you must be from out of town, right? I said, yeah. No, it wasn't the city. I called it Frisco. She says, you're not local. I said, no, I'm not. How'd you know? She says, nobody calls San Francisco Frisco, but an outsider.
Yes.
So, okay, sorry, that mistake won't happen again.
Right.
So, I mean, little things like that, but that's local. In Chicago, Dusty's. What the fuck is a Dusty? what are y'all talking about? Oldies.
Yes.
It's an oldie. No, we
Dusty.
call them Dusties.
How about Stepper? What's a Stepper?
Stepper music. Yeah, but what are you talking about? Hand dancing.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what that is. We called it hand dancing on the East Coast.
Yeah, and
So-
they got go-go in Washington. That's what house music is. It's go-go, and
exactly.
it's techno in Detroit, and you keep going.
But see, that's why I say
And garage in the UK.
radio has to remain local to a certain degree, but they bastardized the business as far as the music selection. Like I said, the vice president of programming for the company picks the music. So if you got 100 R&B stations around the country that you're picking the music for, you can get in your car and drive from Los Angeles to New York, or from Seattle, Washington, to Miami, Florida, and every one of the iHeart radio stations or Radio 1 stations or CBS or whatever, they're all going to sound the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you have destroyed that local thing. As a young radio person growing up in the 60s and 70s on the East Coast, I look forward to driving from Norfolk, Virginia, my hometown, to New York City, because I would have to go through Richmond, D.C., Philadelphia, New Jersey, Newark, before I got to New York. And every one of the R&B stations or top 40 stations had a little different flavor.
Yeah.
You knew when you got to D.C., you heard a whole different, slicker, smoother sound than you heard in Richmond or Norfolk.
Sure.
It was a little more Southern flavored. But when you got to D.C., man, those guys was cracking it. Yeah. And then when you got to Philadelphia, it was another smoothness. But when you got to New York and Frankie Crocker and the guys up there, Lord have mercy, you were in radio heaven. But that doesn't exist anymore. It's the same.
And the opportunity for one of those guys to move up from, the southern part of the country to a New York City or a Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Very rare now. Same thing with a program director. If you get a job at iHeart or Radio 1 as a PD, you will do whatever you got to do to keep that job for as long as you can.
Most of them have no experience. They're filling a chair, and the VP of programming is running the show, calling the shots, and then his boss, who's the regional VP, is calling all the shots for him, and it's,
That's right. That's right.
I mean, maybe not to that degree in some of the markets, but even in some of the major markets, they've handed the chair to some people that absolutely had no business having the chair, maybe as an assistant or something to learn for a couple of years, but no, you get the chair. Here you go.
And
you got
what absolutely
a market manager that the PD and the GMs have to report to, and he or she, in most cases, never done any of the jobs that
it's a sale. It's a salesman. So he's thinking about is how can I get the next nickel in here? That's all they're.
the thing that would always kind of drive it crazy too is like when you are an on-air personality, aka on-air jock, but then you also do nightclub work or you do sound. Like a lot of us, bootleg as the sound man for like concerts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would always catch fire for why don't we play more of the up and coming local artists on the radio station, whatever. And I'm like, bro, that's a long story I can't tell you right now because it's just going to ruin my night. But but we get so much flack for it, and the person who's up there basically kiboshing the whole thing. No one knows their name, but they see us.
Yeah.
I get yelled at. I get pinned in
Right.
the corner. I get bro, how come you guys don't play all the kind, bro? We went bust so hard. This song is so good, bro. You didn't even play it. Like I can't. Sorry, it's out of my hands. And you look like an a-hole, but it has nothing to do with us, And that was always so painful. So I'm gonna again. I bring it back to this. This is for the local musicians as well as local DJs. All of these things that make terrestrial radio suck right now. We have the opportunity in 2020 to convince people that the new way is streaming. And yes, the labels and stuff will keep messing with us, but we still got to keep going, just like Prohibition. We got to keep going until they figure out a way that they can monetize it. And when they will monetize us. Because without the money from the labels, radio stations kind of are out. Right? And that's kind of a problem too.
Yeah.
Music doesn't make as much money as it used to make. So the radio stations can't make as much money as it used to make. So our disambiguated radio, aka us live streaming, if you don't know what the hell that means, then look it up. We are the opportunity, and it might take a year, it might take two, but eventually the labels will be barato, paying you directly to play various tracks. And there's no payola laws in streaming, fam. Not yet, anyway. So when they figure it out, they're going to come to you and be like, man, your stream is 100,000 people deep on Twitch. Hey, here is, a couple grand. I need you to break this new record. And then, keep pushing. I'm going to just say keep pushing.
This may be the farm system for radio of the future. I think this is the only chance anybody's going to have to really master this skill and be able to move into taking over a syndicated show. And I think that's probably something that we'll be seeing more of in the future, because again, a lot of people have just gotten into the streaming since the pandemic. And, that's when I started, and that's when I met Doc. I know, Lee, you've been involved in it for many, many years that I've watched your radio show.
They had dial-up modems at 300 baud.
Don't laugh. When we did the reunion at GCI back in, I want to say like 1996, Armando brought his computer in there and he set up a stream. And we all looked at him like, what are you doing, dude? And why are you even bothering to do this? That seemed like a lot of work to keep that computer up here. And he's like, putzing with it, and it's like, yeah, okay, Armando, but you have fun, and we'll
buffering,
do it.
But
that's right.
It got it to work.
Back when Last FM and those guys first started, like about 3 years before Last FM, my brother and I made our first shoutcast station in the back of our electronics store, basically streaming all Korean music and import stuff that we could find, and we're just playing it. And we would trip out like, oh, we got like 40 listeners today, because at that time you had to go to Shoutcast directory and look for it. But even like the concept of chopping up and editing a computer system, I dragged my first computer system into WKIKI in order to cut commercials. And then my buddy Mike G, who was responsible for cutting the commercials, he fell in love with it. He duplicated my system and then got the station to buy, I forgot what that card was, but it was a big music card that had like all the things sticking out, similar to Pro Tools, but it was marketed directly towards radio people. And then all of the cutting became that. And that's all we ever did, with a Power PC, like that first hybrid Mac back in the day. And it is what it is. So people, yes, you can do this. And if you don't believe this, Joe Rogan. I've been podcasting since 2003, since before it was a podcast. Joe Rogan been podcasting for over 10 years. And then one day somebody was like, all right, we got to, before you keep stealing everybody from us, we need you. Here is $20 million. And Joe was like, okay, I'll go. So
and I'm gone.
Keep doing it. Like Scott said,
the
pool for syndications, the pool for pick, when Clear Channel or whomever, CBS or whoever figures out that DJ's live streaming is real, they will pull from the talent, and you can only be the talent if you're here. If you're not showing up because Facebook is hard, IG Live is hard, well, don't be mad, 5 years from now when somebody gets paid, because when they pay Vince Adams to be like the $10 million like on-air house music guy to run the station on whatever the new thing becomes, don't be mad, because Vince be putting in work.
Right. And I say a caveat to that, you're right. And some people will make that transition. I say, don't make that transition. Stay here and grow this, because whatever you create right now on the internet, you own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ownership is the key.
Yes.
Okay. Very few opportunities. A handful of people will get that $1 million, multi-million-dollar deal. Okay. Trust me, I know. I became the first multi-millionaire as a radio programmer. And I don't think anybody else has done it since then.
And that was in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So 40 years ago.
1985.
35 years ago.
But ownership, if you own your channel, if you can max out a YouTube stream or a Facebook or whatever, you own that. Absolutely. They're going to jump some money in front of you, but hey, say, no, I'm good. If you're making $20,000, $15,000 a month off of your stream, grow it, make it bigger, keep the ownership, stop letting corporate bosses own your shit. It's your stuff.
Yep. And that's
make
what
them
Victor
sit
said.
there with their thumbs in the mouth and say, damn.
That's what Diz said.
Guy
Diz said ownership. Ownership is
it.
word. Good
well,
call, Diz.
I want to thank you for being with us. I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. It's great to see you. For those of you, if you've joined us late, Lee Michaels, the world famous Lee Michaels, program director of so many of the top radio stations in the country, founder of the Hot Mix 5, the brains behind the whole thing. Doc Rock coming to us from Hawaii. I'm Scott Smokin Silz. We do this every Wednesday. We do it at 2 p.m. Central. Lee, I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Anytime.
Appreciate that. Guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, do all the good stuff you're supposed to do, and we will see you again next Wednesday right here on DJ's live streaming. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks again, Lee.
Be safe. Thank you.
And Diz, make sure you hit up Scott so we can get you on.
Yeah, Diz is coming. We got Armando coming, Armando Rivera. We got a lot of really good people joining the show soon. So we'll see you next week, everybody. I'm Scott Silz. Goodbye.